Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of the DevOps Diaries podcast. Today I'm joined by Alice Jessop. Alice, hi, welcome to DevOps Diaries.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome, Alice. It's my pleasure to have you. Alice, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about why we've got you on the podcast today.
Sure. So I'm Alice Jessop. I'm a technical program manager. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem on and off since 2008. And so right now, I recently published a book on Salesforce security, and it seems to be a topic that is on everybody's minds. So that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, absolutely, and it certainly is on everyone's minds at the moment. There's been some pretty significant challenges in this space regarding connected apps and phishing and all those bad things that can happen. Unfortunately, Salesforce security seems to have been in the news for the wrong reasons recently. And
Yes.
hopefully we can shed a little bit of light on that and hopefully guide folks to good solutions and getting good results. But the first and foremost, I guess to preface any of that, where are we now with Salesforce security? You mentioned started Salesforce ecosystem 2008. What's kind of been the changes from 2008 to where we are now as you think about security or even the Salesforce platform in general?
Oh, I mean, it's completely different from 2008. I'm at least in the US, we had completely different regulations when it came to protecting customer data, whether it was finance or PII. And if you come up, 20 years later, it's we have not only just government agencies regulating the US, we have now GDPR and different regulations. And fortunately, Salesforce is very flexible, and so it's very easy to kind of accommodate those different regulations within Salesforce. So yeah, I can't even compare it. It's like completely two different systems between now and
Night and
then.
day.
Yeah,
Night
for
and
sure.
day. Yeah. Is there any particular myth about Salesforce security that you find yourself debunking when you talk to other Salesforce professionals? Things that they think are true but might not be true, or things that they think aren't true but are true.
I think the biggest thing is because it's such a trusted name that people working in Salesforce assume it's secure. So Salesforce does so much on their end to make sure that we have data redundancy and it's set up so you can build it really securely, but it's not by default secure. It's up to the team that's using Salesforce to build it out in a way that's going to ensure its security. So that's probably the biggest misconception, that it's kind of handled. They don't need to worry about it as long as they're completing their 90-day release updates on time. So.
Yeah. Where do you start with Salesforce security? I guess if we take a look at like your book and where you started with that, where did that come from, and what does your book aim to achieve for anybody that reads it?
Yeah,
And
so
what's it called? And what's the title of the book? I think that
oh,
would
so
help as well.
the title of the book is Salesforce Security: An Admin's Guide. And when I wrote the book, it was really thinking about admins like myself who kind of just ended up as accidental admins, becoming Salesforce administrators without a background in computer science or cybersecurity, and realizing that admins can have such an impact on the security of an org. But in order to kind of take on that role, they really need to have some kind of background in understand what the security controls are and why they're important. So it was really geared towards admins as they're building out an org or taking on a new org. Then these are different controls they can get put into place to kind of ensure security, but then they can also, it will just give them a different framework as people are building, so they'll be able to respond and say, hey, are we doing this as securely as possible? Are we thinking about, is it scalable? Is it secure? Kind of these other topics that don't necessarily come to you when you're just someone throws you the keys and says, hey, this is you now, run the Salesforce org.
Yeah. Has that happened to you before? Have you've been plunged into that deep end yourself?
Yes. Oh, yes. And in that org, this was many years ago, kind of during the financial crisis, when I logged into the org for the first time, I realized I could see social security numbers and passports and bank account numbers and the person's their mother's name, their grandmother's name, like all of the security questions that you would need to answer. And I thought, wow, they really trust their employees
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everyone had
That's
access to that.
yeah. I'd be worried as a user of that platform or that company that so many people had unnecessary access to
It
my
was shut down.
information.
It was shut
It got
down.
shut.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
well any guesses to why? um,
um, um, it's a very long story. They deserved it, but it's a long story.
there, there, long stories, and I think you say it got shut down. And I think that's one of the things when I think about security and when we have conversations with we have a very good security culture here at GearSet where I
Hmm.
work, and the infosec training and all the things that we have to do as part of like our compliance programs and this that and the other. But I think the biggest thing when any business has a customer or users or whatever it is, the I think what most people don't realize is like the reputational damage, not only like financial damage that can be done, lawsuits, etc., that might happen from a data leak, etc. But
Hmm.
that reputational damage that can really hinder progress and kind of stop you in your tracks if something does happen, um,
Absolutely.
is is something that maybe gets overlooked. I think we're very trusting as like a society anyway. We trust the companies that we use are gonna look after our data in secure ways, but we really don't know, and we kind of just blindly trust that it is all going to be okay. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have any. Would you say that most companies are by default pretty good about it, or pretty bad with
At this point,
understanding that?
at this point, I'm always very like, I'm a very optimistic person, but at this point, I'm like very distrustful. So if, my dentist office wants me to give information over the phone, why do they need it? Why do I have to provide it to you? Or like if they send me a form that I need to fill out and it requires like my insurance information, I'm looking at, okay, where's this form coming from? Is this form secure? Do I trust the data that's going over the internet? It's not that I don't trust the company. It's that I don't know that they've thought about security in the same way. So I'm a little more hesitant than I was, 5 years ago. But I'm
Hmm.
also really sick of getting those emails to my inbox saying, "Oh, your data's been breached by company XYZ. You should monitor your credit." So I think we're all a little bit weary of that.
Yeah, yeah. Where do we start with a security mindset then? So
Mm,
let's speak to in your case, your book's obviously aimed towards admins that are kind of stepping into orgs. Where do we start to build a security mindset and start our journey down that path of being more security conscious and how we set up our Salesforce orgs to be secure and make sure that we don't run into any of those those data leaks, and we stop emails hitting people like yours inbox and saying you've been part of a data breach.
right. I mean, the place that I would start is the principle of least privilege. So you look at your users, what access they have, what they actually need, what do they need to see, and then what do they need to do. So it's very easy to give someone, when you're troubleshooting, to just give someone modify all permissions to ensure they get over the bug, and then do you remove those modify all permissions? I think it's when you go into an org that hasn't been managed properly, it can be really startling to see, they have 50 users and 38 of them are system admins, which means they can do anything they want to the org and probably no one's going to be aware of it. Um, you know, I don't think employees intentionally want to harm their customer data. They're probably not thinking about securing customer data, but you also want to take away the ability for them to do that unknowingly. So it's if they're exporting data, if they're downloading reports, keeping it on their computer, or downloading data onto a USB for whatever reason, it's we just want to take certain abilities away from them so they're not getting themselves into trouble.
Yeah. Here's a question. who actually bona fide needs a system admin profile, a modify all data permission in a Salesforce team or
I
in an
mean,
organization?
maybe one or two people. I mean, you can create different permission sets. And now with permission set groups, it's so easy to really create your own personas and assign them out really simply. It's system admin is overly permissive, but it's also very convenient. So it's easy to assign to people when you're not sure what they need.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about profiles versus permission sets. Obviously, I think it was a couple of years ago, Salesforce announced that they were sunsetting profiles, and it was all moving over to permission sets. They've obviously now reversed that decision, and they're not going to be sunset in the same way.
Hmm.
I think permission sets are a good idea, and permission sets make sense to me
Hmm.
as somebody in this ecosystem and being security conscious, and to follow that principle of least privilege that you talk about. They make sense to me.
Hmm.
For those that are unfamiliar with the different checks and balances or the different applications of profiles and permission sets, give us a little download about the differences between them and how we can start to shape security in our org by that method.
So back in 2008, you would have a profile and it would have your permission, your object level permissions and your system permissions. So it was everything you could see in an org and everything you could do. Um, what ended up happening is because you couldn't get really granular with the permissions, people, everyone on a sales team would have the same access, and everyone on the customer service team would have the same access. And as companies grow, that's not really scalable in a way that's going to keep data secure. So now if we use profiles to kind of group a persona, so sales reps are all going to have this persona, but you'll have different permission sets assigned to them, you can really get granular with getting assigning access like um, what maybe this group needs read access to this data, this group needs edit access to that data. Again, if we want to take away the opportunity for people to make mistakes, so if they don't need edit access to that data, we take that away so there's no concern about them accidentally editing that data. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, and then with permission set groups, you can create all these different custom permission sets and assign them to different personas. And then just with one, just assigning one permission set group, it makes user management so much easier, which is kind of a big challenge for admins in any org.
Yeah, user management. How long does your average admin spend on user management in say a week?
Uh, it depends on the org. I mean, I worked on an org that had over 60,000 users, and it was, I mean, 2 weeks out of the month we spent on user management.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's not
Uh,
a very exciting job. I mean, you want to be like building and doing stuff and solving problems.
yeah, yeah. I have this. It's a big part of what I talk about a lot. Is people want to do the most valuable and impactful work, and if managing user permissions for 50% of your time is what you're doing, you're not going to have the best retention or people enjoy their jobs all that much, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. What I've understood it right, and the listeners understood it right. So, for example, your profiles might be salespeople, customer service reps,
Hmm.
different executive maybe, and then you might have a permission set for this person's an SDR, or a BDR, or an account executive, sales manager, and those things, and then you can start to break it down that way.
Yeah.
Is that how you would use it effectively?
Yes. And probably I would have said the exact same thing by the time I'm done with my coffee. But that was a much more eloquent way of stating it.
Yeah, no, just I think it's always helpful to have people go, oh yeah, that yeah, why well, a manager needs to do different things to what an SDR does, but it's just easy to go, that person's in sales, they should see all this stuff and
Yep.
and things like that. I guess it's the same kind of conversation that you would have almost about layouts by like the layout views that different
Hmm.
different folks see when they access records and things like that. Which leads me to the question because I have no idea. Um, are layouts part of security, or if you
Oh,
effectively manage a layouts, like what impact does that have on like security and data's visibility?
yeah. I mean, well, I think layouts have maybe less of an impact on security, but a better impact on the user experience. So you don't want to have I mean, you want to, if someone doesn't need access to a field, you want to remove it. You don't want to just remove it from the layout, but you also want to be sure that people aren't getting a sense that there are fields that they can't actually access. So it is better to just have a custom layout, but you also don't want to go overboard with trying to manage too many page layouts in an object.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a balance to everything that we do. For
Yeah, it's
sure.
like you
For
have to
sure.
look at the security needs, but then you also have to look at the business needs. And you don't want to make security so stringent that people can't actually do their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about that and your perspective on managing business needs versus user needs as your kind of careers progressed through Salesforce, through the Salesforce space and the Salesforce ecosystem, starting as an admin to now being technical program manager?
Mhm.
What does that look like, and what's the difference between a business need and a user need, and how do you create an effective blend of both?
Yeah, it's so most admins or developers, when they get the business requirements, they're just thinking, all right, how are we going to build this? How are we going to make it cool? Um, and kind of delivering for the customer and usually trying to deliver more than maybe the customer asked for, which is great. But then someone also needs to look at it from a security perspective and say, all right, is this the best way that we're building? Are we recognizing sharing settings in the Apex class? Are we, you know, we have to check all these security settings, but we also don't want to hinder the development, adding on another sprint or two, just when the business needs it. I don't know. I like it because it's not black and white. There's no like one single answer. It is you have to keep business moving, but you have to do it in a way that's secure.
Yeah, yeah, so security underpinning everything. But definitely don't do
Yeah,
anything that's going to compromise the security of your org or your
right.
customer data, right?
Yeah.
Um, but also, yeah, it's a tricky. I guess it's a tricky one to balance. I guess I can
Yeah.
a little bit like me right now, a little bit of paralysis about okay, what do we actually do? How do you get
Mhm.
over that paralysis? Like, do you find like there's certain frameworks that people follow for security that can help keep them moving, or what would be your best advice for implementing a security first culture in development and making progress?
Yeah. So first I would, build everything on the principle of least privilege. Make sure when you're building connected apps, if this is a huge thing for me, if you're building a connected app, make it secure from the get-go. So many people will build a connected app, put it into deployment, and they didn't use the most secure policies. So then you have tech debt trying to go back and update the connected app to make it secure. But now because you have these integrations, you don't want to break the integration. So it's if you just have that in the back of your mind, you can do it right the first time and not have to go back and fix tech debt later.
What are those policies that you mentioned for connected apps?
So, well, particularly I'm thinking about, you want to, at least I would, make a connected app admin only and then assign it to the user or the integration user with a permission set. A lot of connected apps default to anyone can authorize, which means anyone can use data loader or whatever the specific application is, and then it just makes it less secure. And um, but that's a whole other conversation, I think. Connected apps.
Yeah, yeah, especially after the aforementioned security breaches that we've had recently and
Yeah.
what have you, which I do want to talk to you a little bit about because obviously it's quite concerning and um, I'm very much like a people first person, but
Mhm.
people being the primary attack vector for the data breaches that we've seen recently is
Yeah.
something that's concerning. You can have all the permission sets, you can have all the profiles, you can have everything assigned relatively correctly, SSO, MFA, like you name it, you can have it all, right? And you
Mhm.
can still have your data breached.
Yeah.
You can still have a human used as the attack vector and be let in by a malicious actor, whether it's voice phishing or email phishing. You name it, it can happen. What? what do you think we can do? Like we've all done the corporate training, right? You know, like these are our security policies, and you like click through and answer the quiz, and you know you pass, and you know it's not thought about again for a year. I think we've all worked in organizations that have had that.
Mhm.
Previous organization that I've worked in, that's definitely the approach that they took too. But what can we do to make sure that we don't fall susceptible to being used as an attack vector ourselves? Like, what's your advice to the humans out there, even if,
Yeah.
regardless of whether their org is super secure by default because the admins and developers have done a great job, or whether it might be a little bit more lax.
Yeah, I mean that's challenging because I think once I heard that Google had been breached, I thought, oh my gosh, if Google can be breached, then anyone can. Because, I sort of think of them as like a really high standard for quality and security. But again, it's playing on that human, I don't know, like that human desire to be helpful and to, especially if someone's calling and they say they're from your company and you need to do this, and it's it's hard to overcome. And I think those attacks are going to be worse with AI. They're figuring out how to take our good natures and turn them against us.
Yeah, yeah. I was speaking. I was a number of years ago. I was having a conversation with an old manager at a previous organization that I worked with, and because I used to work in customer service, and we would call customers, and it was like dealt with like billing information for like a utilities company,
Mhm.
um and we would call them, and like we were told it's just like if somebody is like asking to verify who you are, it's just like if somebody says I need to know that I'm calling the right person, I'm going to hang up on you, I'm going to call you back. Like, don't be
Mhm.
offended by that, because that's one of the best things that you can do. If you call somebody and they go, I'm going to call your official number back, and then I know that I'm then speaking to the right person. You know, it's just simple things that can probably be overlooked. You know, that people, I always find it weird. I don't know if it happens in the US as well, being here in the UK, but we'll have um, like your mobile phone provider or network provider like give you a call and say call you about an upgrade, or you're expecting the call, and it's just like they ask you to confirm your security information when they've called you, and it's just like I don't know if I should be doing this. Like, oh, it's always been fine, fortunately, but I think with these
Yeah.
recent news events, I think we're all becoming a little bit more skeptical, and people don't know how to handle that, and there's a little bit of fear. But maybe there's a simple answer to a lot of this stuff.
I think the company I work for, we very rarely talk on the phone. Everything is over, it's over Zoom or it's over email. So I feel like we're our teams would be less likely to fall victim to like a phone call, but there are other ways to get to people to if they can get an email past the barrier and it looks official. I mean, I've seen emails and I thought, "Oh my gosh, I my gut is telling me this isn't right. It looks completely official, but my gut is just telling me that there's something suspicious on this." So I just delete it and I think, "All right, well they'll email me back if they need something." But
Yeah,
it's
that's
but
that's
it's
my
nothing other
approach
than
too.
my instinct, you know?
Yeah, yeah. There's no real good answer for instinct other than just seeing it and time spent in that mindset, right?
Yeah,
You have the luxury of spending the best part of like 20 years thinking about that kind of stuff, but most people don't.
right.
um, and you mentioned the obvious buzzword of the decade in AI and security. What's your
Mhm.
take on the impact of AI on security generally, or is there anything that has you particularly worried?
I think it's an exciting time and I think there's so much potential. I mean, it feels like we're at the start, I don't know, maybe like when the internet began, if you remember, if you're old enough to remember back then. I think just the possibilities are endless. I think in order to securely use AI, like with Agent Force, then you need to be using the principle of least privilege in your org to limit what people have access to. And that includes the agent. So you want to make sure the agent can only access what it needs. And then
Yes.
you also need to make sure your data is really clean. If you're, and most orgs have pretty messy data. And if the agent is learning off of bad data and providing responses to bad data, and that's in the system, then that's just, I don't even know how that would work to clean that up, in a year from now if it turns out the agent's just been wrong because of bad
Yeah.
data.
Yeah, we this is something that I quite like your insight on, and because we hear bad data or messy data quite a lot at the moment because of specifically when we're talking about Agent Force and LLMs and it learning off of bad data or messy data. What do we classify as bad data or messy data?
So let's say you have fields that are classified as, like, PII or HIPAA, medical information, but there weren't any validations put into place. So the people using the system were just putting that data in fields maybe that were classified incorrectly. So the agent may be able to access a text field and someone inadvertently put in, characters or, details about someone's health condition or their living address or, their social security number, their tax identification number. That's going to cause a real problem if now the agent can access it and maybe they're providing it to either internal users or if it's an external customer coming to the agent. That's worrying. Is that people aren't kind of looking at those. Everyone's so excited to build the agent. They're not thinking about what we need to do to make sure the system is set up to properly handle the agent.
Yeah, with with that in mind, where do you start when you start to look at your data management and you start to look at your data management and go, we want to build this agent. We want to make sure that we don't have messy data. Where do you start? Do you do like a full audit of every field and, like you say, make sure that they have validation rules set up, or like take a subset of records and make sure that they all make sense, or like where like what steps do you take first? Because I think about that and I go, if I was tasked with that, I wouldn't know where to start.
So I would probably start with data classification. So if your org has classified different fields with their specific classification, then you're a step ahead. Then you can pull those fields. You can start at least looking at your data and is the data matching those classifications? Um, if you're if you haven't done that, that's a good place to start. So grab an object and look at, all right, what are the sensitive fields on this data? Now let's classify those, and now let's look at the principle of least privilege and figure out who actually needs access to them. Um, then if you have to start adding in validations and do cleanups, then you're going to need to both bring in a bigger technical team. I don't know how many teams are willing to do that before implementing the agent. I feel like right now it's kind of like everyone's so excited about agents, and not necessarily Agent Force, just AI in general. People are kind of
Mm.
putting the cart before the horse and kind of planning afterwards. And so it's like the business versus security thing. Like, I know there's a business need that everyone's moving to AI, but you want to make sure you're doing it properly. So, data classification, principal of least privilege, clean up your old data. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah. It's the age-old adage of slow down to speed up eventually, right? Because you could
Yeah.
implement it and then a year's time, you're getting bad results, especially as people looked to have more customer-facing agent force use cases as well. For which
Yeah.
we've seen a couple come out, Salesforce case studies and what have you. But I think that's the grail for everybody is human human facing agents or customer facing agents. Like how many
Hmm.
orgs are actually ready for that, and when they
Yeah.
click go, like how quickly uh, can things go wrong? I guess Salesforce Help is a good example of that. Like
Hmm.
Salesforce Help's agents when it first came out were questionably get questionable results.
Yes.
But they did the whole thing, experimented themselves, and said we're doing it. You can do it too, kind of thing. But I think there still is a bit more tentativity around actually adopting agents in that way.
Hmm. With
Yeah.
with my company, so I'm part of a Salesforce Success Central um, department. So we're connected to all of the Salesforce orgs across Amazon. So one of the orgs that I run 5 different orgs. One of them is it's like a purchasing org, and it doesn't have any customer data. So that's the first org that we're putting Agentforce in, because there's no risk that it's so low risk because we don't have customer data in it. We don't really have business data in it. We can really play around and try to break it and see what we can do. Um, not everyone has the luxury of having multiple orgs where they can have where
Mm.
they have one org that's very low risk where they can start experimenting. But I think if you can even build an agent and then just not have it call any personal data to begin with, so you can start testing it and making sure that's what you need, and then add in the different actions that you need as you get feedback from customers and users. That can be a good way to do. Again, that's like it's not exciting, You have to it's like cadenced. It's not the big bang. So again, that's like tempering like the business needs with the security needs.
Yeah, oh, I guess the same. I kind of I look at Agentforce now as a kind of similar to any other feature or functionality that's from the Salesforce platform. You take like Experience Cloud, for example, or customer
Mhm.
communities as they once were. Like the first customer communities like weren't fantastic, but it's only after people get more familiar with them and what they can actually do and can actually achieve. I mean, communities have their own is another separate security conversation as well. But
That could be its own book for sure.
yeah, um, but it's one of those things we're just not there. We're not there yet. Not enough people have played with it, and not enough people have got to that point. It's a tool in our arsenal
Mhm.
that I believe will make a lot of orgs successful and a lot of companies successful, but we need more time. But
Mhm.
I find we're in a little bit in limbo now. Like after the hype cycle of this thing is here, now people are actually working in earnest. Oh, it does or it doesn't work, and it's only when more success stories start to come out that people will really launch into it in earnest, and it will become accepted as a tool, much like Flow or
Mhm.
Lightning Web Components or whatever else. What other element of the platform that you might have previously been adverse to, but now they go, yeah, we can use this thing now.
Yeah. I think communities are an interesting example because I think people were so excited about communities. And I mean, they're great. I love having experience sites. But there have been all of these cases of communities being used in the US, used for medical, um, like medical related companies. And then because the communities weren't secured properly, the the health insurance information, the social security numbers, they were able to get hacked. And so it's kind of like, all right, we were all excited about something and we experimented with the wrong data. Like this is a good this is a good example of you don't want to try an agent for the first time with your with a hospital. You want to start it with something that has like very low risk data. So
Something like purchasing, for example.
yeah, purchasing exactly. Yeah,
um, and then
and then
go
we're
and
actually
then
oh
build
so
from
we're
there.
actually yeah we're actually able to like connect to like the help.salesforce.com and the developer.salesforce.com sites. So if you come into the agent and you want to know about different products, it can actually bring you information in from Salesforce instead of just what we have in our specific org. It's really cool.
Oh, you seem very excited about it.
I am. It's even though it doesn't have like high risk data, it's I get so many questions that I'm constantly getting pulled into meetings and things that people could read in our FAQs or in our articles, but it's just easier. I think there's something about talking to a person that just makes them feel more secure in the information. Like I may be
Mm.
giving you the same information that you can read in a wiki, but for some reason coming from me, it feels more reliable than reading on a wiki. And I'm really interested if they have the same conversation with an agent that they have with me, if they'll have that same like feeling of security, like, okay, this is correct because the agent said so. And then I will have fewer meetings on my calendar to reiterate the same information.
What's your sense of that right now?
I don't know. I'm optimistic. We're testing. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, yeah. More social proof needed.
Yes, but then I'm also having more meetings show up on my calendar about people who want to put an agent force. and they want to know how we did it properly and securely and got it through a security review. So, but those are good conversations that I enjoy having. So,
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Speaking of security reviews,
mhm.
um, how do you run a good security review for if you're looking to buy an application? So say somebody's like in a similar role to yourself, or there might be a solo admin or a small team. Any of this gamut. We have an amazing app exchange marketplace full of
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of products and applications that people can purchase. How do you run a good security review of anything that you're looking to install or use from the app exchange, or um, heck, even in our own lives, how would you approach like doing a security review of anything for Salesforce applications specifically?
Yeah, so I mean, so again, I've run the gamut of, working at a company where you could just install whatever you wanted and it was all good. And then I work at a company that does, I mean, security is job zero. So our security reviews can take months to complete. So, it can be anything from a pen test to writing a threat model where you're looking at every possible way that someone could break this application or use it incorrectly, and then you're coming up with a way to mitigate that risk. Um, if you don't have a full security team to like handle like a like pen test and a security review, I would look at I would see what kind of security documentation they have. Are they doing their own pen tests? Are they SOC 2 compliant? Are they How are the reviews? I would at least get a good review going on it, and then maybe try it in a sandbox before you're trying it in a production org.
Mm,
I would also look at, with some managed packages, the way they're installed, it impacts the way that you permission your own users. And so does it require that your users have more permissions than they need, like with API access or anything like that? There, there's so much to consider. So I don't really have one answer.
yeah, so it's a multitude of things.
Yeah, but that's kind of what interests me about the security reviews is that it's like you're uncovering all these things and you're doing this research and then like kind of debating like, all right, we're going to do this to we want to use gear set is, are these documents going to satisfy what our requirements are for using this tool? So yeah, it requires a lot of critical thinking, which is something I enjoy about it. It's nerdy, but I like it.
Is there anything else particularly nerdy that you enjoy on the Salesforce platform? Obviously, again, 2008 to today, being part of the Salesforce platform. What else do you enjoy other than security?
Oh, yes. So I love, okay, so reports back in 2008. If you wanted a report, you would have this. It's kind of like if you go into like creating your own custom report type, you have like all these different options to like add to the report. So you would go in, you would just have like this, it was this brown page and it would be like lists of fields and different options. And everything was a checkbox. And it wasn't, and everything was like the equals, true, false, and most people didn't really know what Boolean was then, so they didn't
Hmm.
mean checkbox on, off. Um, it was wild. It was like, I don't know. It was like MySpace. Just it was so
Did
complicated
it have a song
trying
playing in the
to,
background as well?
yeah, just trying to create a report, and then you never really knew if you'd gotten the values right. So it was kind of so someone trying to do the same thing would come up with a completely different report. So I love reports now. They're so easy to use. It's in summary fields. I mean, these kids these days, they don't know how easy they have it.
How good they've got it. And Agent Force aside, what's your prediction for the Salesforce platform as it continues to grow, mature, change?
I think so. I feel like the agents have the ability to take a lot of like this manual work off of admins, particularly like user management. And now you can use the security center to do security auditing, and you can set different thresholds and get alerts. I think I think admins are going to be able to do like a lot more fun stuff, like building flows instead of just managing permission sets. And I believe the agents will have the ability to troubleshoot bugs for users. So, I mean, if they can just imagine how many tickets that's going to reduce. If the user can come to the agent and explain what's going on, maybe show a screenshot of what the error is, and then the agent's able to resolve it for them. And they don't actually have to open up a ticket and then wait for the admin to get back to them. And I think it's going to be a huge time saver. But I
Yeah,
think but I think that's also going to make it harder to get jobs as admins. And so one way you can kind of make yourself stand out is by skilling up in security, which is something most admins aren't readily doing. So that's kind of one way to make yourself stand out,
yeah,
which I
yeah.
hardly recommend.
And if this conversation tells me anything, like security is going to be the backbone of any successful agent implementation or any successful Salesforce implementation, full stop, Agentforce or not.
Yeah,
It's security
absolutely.
is never going to not be important.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially I mean, I think every day, like I check LinkedIn to see about, who's been hacked by this, specific security or data loader breach, fake data loader. And it's always like, oh, please don't let it be, company XYZ. It's like, I think no one wants to be on the front page of Reddit for the wrong reason.
hmm. Yeah. Don't let it be you. Don't let
Yeah,
it be you.
right.
Yeah. Um, Alice, it's kind of like a kind of like closing kind of thread. Obviously, admin to a TPM. And you
Hmm.
briefly mentioned like kind of careers and people, admin jobs somewhat going away, and I think
Hmm.
that's a very real fear that a lot of the ecosystem is feeling right now. Certainly, when I'm out at conferences and things like that,
Hmm.
people on the early steps of the ladder are finding things really challenging. Um, is there any particular bit of advice that you've got for anybody that might be in a similar boat or struggling to find their next step that you've learned throughout your career journey from admin to now TPM that you think folks would find valuable or you would encourage them to look at? Obviously, looking at security and specializing in security aside, which you just mentioned.
Hmm. I think anything you can do, take classes, take certifications. I took a development course and immediately realized I do not want to be a developer. But then at least I was able to like sit in on meetings with developers and have some idea of what they were talking about. So that so I feel like I got enough technical knowledge that I could become a technical program manager. And even though I'm not building at this point, I have a good idea of what we can do, what the best practices are, how we can make it move quickly. I think that's really helped me push projects over to completion. So I think be flexible because as certain jobs sort of become more limited, more jobs will open up in different ways that we can't even anticipate right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
keep your chin up, keep learning.
yeah, yeah. No, it's great advice. And is there any other nuggets from your book, or what's the give people a reason to pick up your book and read it?
So the book is actually kind of funny and kind of quirky. So I used to teach dog massage classes, and I'm used to training developers. And as a teacher, you have to provide information in a way that people will learn it and and understand it, so they'll actually retain it. And with people, like my favorite people that I've worked with were on the spectrum. And so I knew like I had to like keep things interesting and keep them engaged. And so there's actually like a lot of humor in the book because I want people to turn to the next page and keep moving through it. And it's hard to do that with like a painfully technical book. So I would, of course, read the book. That's a good place to start.
Well, I need to rewind. So you're canine massage therapist.
Yes, I
Okay.
am nationally certified, although I did let my certification go expire because it was very expensive to maintain.
So I got to ask, is there any, are there any, what's the word that I'm looking for here?
Not sure.
Uh, are there any like similarities or like transferable skills between canine massage therapy and Salesforce?
Well, no. Um, so the teaching thing, so I taught canine massage, and so that was a great learning experience in just how different people absorb information, right? And then, working in tech, I'm at my computer all day, and it's really nice to do something other than be at a computer at the end of the day. So you can go to the shelter and massage dogs, and it's amazing. Like it forces you to clear. It's like meditative. You don't think about anything. You're just thinking about how you can help that dog feel better, start to trust people more, and provide this really positive experience. And everything else is just gone. So it just forces you into a different part of your mind. And if you're
Oh,
a
there you
dog
go.
person, I absolutely recommend that you take a canine massage class.
Oh, well, there you go. We're going to have security experts and canine massage therapist experts
These,
after this
these are my
podcast
people.
episode.
Yeah, these are my people.
Alice, where can people find the book and how can people connect with you?
So the book is available on Amazon. It's available on Kindle and also print. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can check out my website, which is alice-jessup.com. And I love to hear from people.
Perfect. Alice, thank you so much for sharing your time with the listeners today and with myself, and for your knowledge and your leadership in what is undoubtedly going to be a topic at the forefront of everybody's minds, not just today, but years into the future. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in, listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on. It helps me out more than you know. And go and follow Alice in all those places and buy her book.